It all begins with a high school couple admired by all their classmates. Suzuki and Kazuni are the most popular in class. Sato, on the other hand, feels like a plain, ordinary young student. He wished he could live an extraordinary and fantastic life, but it seems he only has a banal life with no great achievements. One night after class, Sato is waiting for a heavy rain to pass so he can go home. But as he goes to a kind of structure where students leave their umbrellas, he realizes someone must have taken his umbrella, probably by accident. But he ends up seeing a single umbrella there, and he's confused about whether to use it or not since it's not his. To his own surprise, he is approached by Suzune, who comes in his direction and is about to leave school with her umbrella. And then comes Kazuki. It turns out that the umbrella that was there belonged to Kazuki. And he is kind enough to invite Sato to go with them, using his umbrella since Sato was without his. Sato is surprised by Kazuki's kindness and flattered to be able to accompany the couple on the way. Suzune also proves to be as kind to Sato as Kazuki. It seems like he's on top of the world now, being friends with the most popular couple in school. He makes a point of emphasizing his surprise to Kazuki, explaining that he never imagined he could talk to him, as he had only seen Kazuki talking to girls, and Kazuki explains that he only responds when spoken to. And Suzune takes the opportunity to tease him, pointing out that this means no boys talk to him. He's impressed by her audacity to say that, but she apologizes and it's fine. Sato takes the opportunity to say that he expected her to be a little less approachable. And she said no, saying that she's just another ordinary student. And Kazuki takes the opportunity to express his disagreement. After all, for him, she is an unparalleled student. She's good at everything she does. And he even makes a point of telling her that she should see herself more positively, and she tells him not to be so hard on her. Before it seems like a love triangle or something like that is about to happen, to our surprise, Sato takes the opportunity to ask them if they are indeed dating, and they say no. He explains to Sato that they are always together because they are both part of the student council, and Sato is embarrassed for asking that question, but Suzune comforts him. And then a luminous portal opens on the ground right below them, taking our friends to another world, a magical world, where they stand before a king in a castle. Suzune loved being taken to this magical kingdom, which leaves Sato a little surprised, right? And it seems he didn't like seeing that side of her. And the king, named Vyugesh, who is the king of Linger, tries to calm the three down and asks forgiveness for the confusion, but needed to summon them for a mission. They will be heroes in a battle against the demon king who is threatening the kingdom. In an act of desperation, the king had to order a ritual of summoning heroes to get help against the demon king. Unfortunately, the portal only takes the selected ones to the kingdom, but it doesn't return them to their own world. Kazuki revolts because they were summoned without his permission, and the guards prepare for any kind of retaliation from him. And Sato calms Kazuki down, and the king says he will try to find a way to take them back to their world after the mission. Suzune asks the king how he knows they are great heroes without even knowing them. At this point, Elsie, a young mage, explains that the magical circle of summoning heroes is designed to find people of great talent. Elsie calls them to measure their magical abilities through a magical crystal ball, and despite everything, Sato is very happy to be useful, since Elsie tells him that he could use magic even without being the great hero. Suzune is the first to use a crystal ball. The ball has a yellow color, which according to Elsie indicates an affinity for thunder magic. Kazuki makes the ball white, which would be light magic. And when it's Sato's turn, the ball turns green. To Elsie's great surprise, who is completely surprised and desperate. Sato doesn't understand anything right, but before Elsie could give him any answer about it, she immediately takes him to the king, saying that his energy is green, and the king orders Sato to be removed from the castle immediately. Suddenly, a mysterious woman with green hair appears in the palace. She goes to the king asking if the summoning of heroes has already been done. Her name is Rose, and she is the captain of the kingdom's rescue team. Elsie invites them to meet the heroes in another room. Meanwhile, the king tells Sato that he will decide what to do with him later, and then Sato asks what his energy means, and Rose ends up hearing, and ends up telling the king that she will borrow the boy. The king orders Elsie to keep Sato away from her. Elsie then performs a spell involving Sato in a bubble that takes him out of the castle, but Rose quickly goes after him and undoes the bubble, taking the boy and assuring the king that he will be a great user of healing magic. Suzune and Kazuki are surprised to learn that Sato was taken from the castle, and Elsie explains to them that Sato's magic power is healing, and that users of this type of magic are incredibly rare. Rose is an example of a user of this type, and Suzune asks what the problem is, and she explains that Rose's methods are not at all conventional. At Rose's residence, Sato is introduced to her subordinate, men with threatening appearances, but who have no magic. She says there are only 2 other healing users on the rescue team, but they work elsewhere. Sato is a little afraid of Rose and even asks if he couldn't learn from someone else, but she says it will be with her and that's final. He stays in one of the subordinates' rooms, who ends up teasing him for being a new student of the tough boss Rose. The next day, Sato wakes up in his new home. To his bad luck, none of that was just a dream, it was all real. Then he receives a visit from Suzune and Kazuni, and they appear with their magic masters, and also with a princess named Celia. And Sato calms his worried friends, saying everything is fine. He says he's looking forward to his training because that way he'll be useful to his friend. Rose appears to Sato to make sure he's relaxed, and gives him a diary so he can record his training and write down what he feels with. Then she asks him to have his coffee before starting his training, On his first day of training, he does almost nothing besides feeling a warm sensation in his chest, and Rose explains to him that this is an energy called mana. And to her surprise, he understands what is written, even though it's not in Japanese. Rose explains that those selected to be great heroes usually also receive the power of translation magic. And he needs to read the book to learn more about this new universe and everything it contains. On the second day, he just had to run, on the third too. And he does it until he can't take it anymore. But Rose always restores him with the power of healing so he can continue. On the fourth day, he runs along with the other subordinates who keep challenging him. And the fact that Rose keeps calling him an insect doesn't make him feel much better. The next day, he starts to get slower. But he realizes that healing magic starts to emanate from him when he's very tired and sore. From the next few days, Rose starts throwing Sato away so he never stops in a very funny way. Sato starts to not feel tired anymore and Rose doesn't go easy on him and continues to be demanding. While Sato does push-ups, Rose explains that he's running so much because he has to be prepared to run from enemies on the battlefield and also to save his friend. After that come the weight exercises, and stopping to eat, Sato realizes that one of the subordinates ate his food, which makes him furious. As he runs to catch him, he doesn't even realize that the weights are still on his body. And look, the guy's getting good. When Suzune, Kazuki and Celia arrive at Sato, he is training with Rose, working hard, carrying large stones on his back. Everyone is surprised. He looks like a different person. Suzune and Kazuki's masters keep bothering Rose about her methods, but she asks him to leave her alone. She says that Sato will be her right hand. While the two argue, the young people go to another corner to talk, and Sato takes the opportunity to ask the others who the young lady with him is. When they say she's the king's daughter, he almost has a stroke, and he apologizes for talking about her in such a banal way. But she says he can treat her like anyone else. She presents some very tasty food to them, and Kazuki talks about his training, emphasizing that his teachers are strict but careful. And Sato thinks the same cannot be said for Rose. Suzune takes the opportunity to look at Sato's abs and asks to touch them, which makes him completely embarrassed. Naughty girl, huh? Kazuki asks Sato if the training is very hard, and he says yes, it's very hard. He even thought about giving up but thinks he's getting used to it and getting stronger. Rose's subordinate, who had eaten Sato's food, goes to him with a new meal that he makes a point of getting for him. But he does this acting smug for having done it, and this makes Sato even more furious. The two start fighting and the others find the scene strange, and then they end up seeing it as something that is part of what Sato is now. As crazy as that may seem, when he goes to sleep that night, Sato reflects on his new condition. And the next morning, Rose takes him to a secluded place, a forest called Linger's Darkness, famous for being full of monsters, and he has a mission to capture one of the creatures of the forest that he learned about through the book. And of course, right, he's terrified, but Rose grabs him and throws him into the forest. Sato falls hard into the big forest, but with the use of his magic he manages to cushion the fall. Phew, right. Now he has to focus on the mission and defeat a bear-like forest creature. Before he could think of anything else, the monster appears behind him, and he runs for his life. Then he stops and remembers his training. There's no way the bear can scare him more than his own master. But when he realizes it, here comes the bear in the company of two more bears. He thinks that's cowardly and starts running again, and runs so fast that he manages to cross a large abyss, leaving the bears behind. Then he spends the night in the forest and counts the days he stays there. Then he decides to hunt the bear until he comes across a tree with some scratches on its trunk. With that, he knows that they must not be very far. He hears a noise in some bushes and stays alert. But it was just a harmless rabbit with an injured paw. Then he uses healing magic to heal the bunny's paw, and the rabbit starts to want to follow him. And then he talks about the big bear, and the rabbit seems to understand what he's saying, and starts to show him the way that leads exactly to the bears. Arriving there, he watches the bears, willing to kill them, even with his little friend the rabbit begging him not to do it. Arriving there, they come across an incredible scene. A pair of bears are dead, torn apart, with only their cub alive. Analyzing the wounds, he concludes that it could only have been the work of that giant snake. And what's worse, she did it for her pure pleasure of killing. Now he wants to avenge the bear cub and go after the snake to kill her, and asks the rabbit to show him the way using its sense of smell. He reaches the snake and engages in a violent battle with her, sticking a spear in her eye. With that, she is in agony. Then she tries to bite one of his arms, but to her bad luck, he has a knife in that hand, and he uses it to stick it even further into her head through her mouth. While using magic to heal his arm from her bite, the bear cub manages to sink its claws into the snake's tail, giving Sato the opportunity to climb the snake and run to its head, where he manages to land a good punch in her face, followed by a blow with a spear, taking down the animal. Or at least that's what they think. After acting victorious and having a tender moment with the cub, the snake rises again. He doesn't know what to do because he has already exhausted his healing power and can't even get up anymore. It seems his end has come. The snake goes towards him and he starts to speak ill of Rose, simply because she left him in this situation. But when he least expects it, Rose appears out of nowhere and steps on the snake's head, killing her. Sato is perplexed. She had everything under control the whole time. In fact, he discovers that even the bunny was her pet sent to watch over him. And it was the rabbit itself that warned her of the danger Sato was in while he was fighting the snake. Rose reveals that she belongs to the Demon King's army that ended up fleeing to that forest. She didn't imagine that the big bear would be killed by her, and says that not even an entire elite squad would be able to defeat her, which leaves Sato outraged because he almost died in this story. And Rose says it was a way to test his strength, fighting against something much stronger than. The cub starts to growl at Rose, understanding her as a threat to Sato, and she is happy that they got attached and goes home, promising some punishment for Sato for having heard him speak ill of her. She tells Sato that he is fit to battle alongside her. Despite having a lot to learn, he has a qualification that none of the other healing magic users had. Rose summons Sato to battle against the invaders of Linger. His mission is to heal the wounded. Meanwhile, in the Demon King's castle, he finishes talking about the preparations with his general, a beautiful young woman with red hair and coiled horns on her head who speaks in a very submissive and polite way. On the way, she bumps into another subordinate of the Demon King. His name is Hiruluk, and he talks to her, kind of making slight provocations, and she tries to ignore him. After showing her an experiment he's working on, which is nothing less than a giant snake, that is, the guy is a kind of magic scientist, and it is precisely he who helps manufacture that type of snake that attacked Sato in the forest. They comment among themselves about the last prototype, which in fact escaped through the forest after fleeing from an enemy named Siggles, but Hiruluk guarantees that this new prototype is much stronger. And Sato is happy to be back home and missed his colleagues snoring. He becomes very intimate with the blue cub, which he now calls Blurin. Rose takes the opportunity to give him a mission, which is to carry Blurin running as if he were a wounded soldier in battle, and he gets tired quickly. Rose explains that humans usually feel exhaustion not only for physical reasons, but also for nervousness, fear, and impatience. She then asks him to run in the city carrying the bear. Then he runs and meets some people in the city. One of them is none other than Orga Flarer, one of the other two users of healing magic, who applies her powers to the city residents who need help, along with her sister Yururu, who is the other user of healing magic, who incidentally has a clinic in the city. Sato discovers that there are several types of healing magic users, including those who are better at healing others than themselves. They say goodbye and he returns to his residence. Orga is called by her sister, who goes to him. First, Sato visits his friends in the castle. He comes across Suzune, who is very happy to see Sato with his new companion, the bear Blurin, but Kazuki went to train with Siggles. He talks to her and Suzune lets slip that she has a certain interest in him. Meanwhile, Kazuki is facing red wolves, and Suzune gets a little jealous because Sato shows more concern for him than for her, but he takes it as a joke. That night, upon returning to the residence, he tells Rose that he doesn't feel good fighting, and that he just wants to save injured people. Rose accepts this well. The next morning, he is summoned to the castle to accompany, guess what, Suzune in her training. Then Sato accompanies Suzune on her new mission, and she once again fails to disguise that she has some special interest in him. Meanwhile, Princess Celia is a little worried about Kazuki, who, as soon as the day dawned, was already training. Even though the day before he had a super tiring training day. Returning to the two lovebirds, Suzune tries to carry Blurin this time, but it doesn't work out very well. She ends up falling face down on the ground and the bear falling right on top of her. Sato ends up having to use healing magic on her, and she is embarrassed but says she's fine. On the way, they find some threatening-looking men in the forest, but they are complete strangers looking at them maliciously. And they are armed, which doesn't scare Sato that much. And it leaves Suzune excited to be seeing supposed bandits whom she will face on a mission. When the bandits see the big bear, they retreat in fear, but they end up seeing that it's just a cub and return full of courage and malice. Then the guys advance, but before they can get close to Sato and Suzune, she uses her lightning power on them, which helps a lot. But suddenly, in the middle of the forest, what appears to be a pack of red boars begins to come. And to defend herself from them, Suzune uses her lightning magic, striking down some of them. And even Blurin defends them by falling on top of some boars. But it's not enough. Still trying to outsmart the pack, Sato ends up grabbing Suzune and falling with her into the stream. They even fall down a waterfall until they end up in another part of the forest. Sato heals a wound on Suzune's face resulting from the fall. Then they look for a place to shelter. And he realizes that he is in the same place where Rose threw him to capture the big bear. Then they find a cave to stay in, and Sato makes Suzune use her powers to kill fish in the lake. Then they eat in the cave and Sato takes off his shirt to feel the warmth of the bonfire. And Suzune turns her back so he can be more comfortable. But she can't help herself and turns her face a little to look at his body. That is, until something distracts them. Some small creatures begin to appear in the caves. Venom monkeys, as pointed out by Sato. He knows them because of the book he read from Rose, but for the first time he's seeing some in person. Suzune is so admired by the little animals that she ends up letting herself be bitten by one of them. To Sato's fright, who immediately uses his healing magic on her. Meanwhile, at the castle, Kazuki and Celia return to the king, and they realize that Suzune and Sato are not in the palace. He gets worried and makes a point of going after them, but he interrupts Kazuki and says that Sato is with Suzune, so everything is fine. Meanwhile, in the cave, the two prepare to sleep. Sato thanks her once again for the bonfire and emphasizes that it's very good to be with her. She gets a little upset because he's only saying that because she's useful with her powers, and he explains that no, he's just being very grateful to her. With that, she lets it go, and the two decide to sleep an individual shift in case something dangerous happens. Before sleeping, she brings up a topic, asking if he misses his old world and if he wants to go back. He says no, and she too. In this world, he has more freedom and feels more useful to others in this world, and says that she is more accessible than in the other world, and she doesn't like the comment very much, saying that he is harsh in how he judges. She takes the opportunity to say that she would like to have something deeper with him, and he gets embarrassed and goes to sleep, and she notices his embarrassment and smiles. The next day they are found by Kazuki and Blurin, and Suzune believes that they smelled them and so they happily leave the forest. The king asks Sato how he is. He replies that he is doing well. In fact, that was nothing compared to the hardship he went through with Rose. And he very nearly let slip something that could put Rose in a bad light with the king, because her methods are not at all conventional. King dismisses him and Suzune. On the way they comment among themselves about a certain tension in the air in the hall. In the corridor, Kazuki goes after them and asks if they are well. Along with him, Celia tells him that Kazuki almost went after them in the forest. Before he can say anything else, she covers his mouth, embarrassed. In the castle courtyard they talk. Suzune watches the two talking, commenting things with Celia. Well boy, I think there's no way around it. It's going to turn into a love triangle. After Kazuki and Celia say goodbye to Sato and Suzune, Kazuki and Celia go to talk. Celia says she feels they are closer, and Kazuki responds yes, thinking she's talking about Sato and Suzune. But in fact she was talking about the two of them. Meanwhile, the king discusses the pack of wild boars with Siggles and Rose. King believes they may be fleeing the Demon King's army. He asks Siggles to prepare the troops. Then the king speaks privately with Rose, asking her to confirm the location of the Demon King's army. She says she will, and he also asks if she could lead the troops, and then she refuses. With that, the king understands that she is still traumatized. It turns out that in fact in the past, Rose led the Linger army in a battle that failed miserably, leaving many soldiers dead, and she always blamed herself for it. And that's why one half of her face is always covered by her hair. She hides a scar. Anyway, that's why she created the rescue team to help save lives instead of leading the fights. The king asks if she had not already achieved that goal, and she says that's not her only goal, but she also wants a subordinate who doesn't die. And Sato's training is precisely for that. Then Sato receives a letter from Rose in which she warns him that he will not have training the next day, and also asks him to deliver another letter to an address. The commander of the Demon King's army has many frictions with the Black Knight, who does not treat her with due courtesy. Rose appears destroying the structure that the Demon King's army was making to invade the kingdom of Linger. The address to which Rose had sent Sato was precisely the Flare brothers' clinic. After being kindly received by Yururu, who unlike her brother, Yururu is better at healing herself than others. Through her, Sato learns that the reasons that led the two to leave the rescue team were that Rose was much tougher with them, reaching fanaticism. Suddenly a man calls Orga, asking for her help to heal people who fell from a roof. Orga realizes that Sato is insecure about being able to heal someone with that type of injury, since he had only healed minor injuries until then, and asks him to trust himself, just as Rose trusts him. With that he gives his best and the healing is a success, and then he says goodbye to the siblings, who even invite them to help at the clinic from time to time. And after he leaves, Orga comments to Yururu about the content of Rose's letter, which speaks of an approaching war. And on the way back, Sato ends up bumping into a girl with pointed ears, and she has the power of prophetic vision. Through her, she sees what appears to be the death of Linger's army. She says he is the only one who can change this future, and says that he must repay her for the prophecy she revealed, and runs away. And he stands there in shock. Back at Linger Castle, Sato asks the guard if he has seen a girl with pointed fox ears in the city. He doesn't seem to know. And Rose arrives in an intimidating way, sending the guy running back to his post. As he walks with Rose, he asks her if he doesn't know about the fox girl. He learned from the guard that she belongs to the beast folk, and Rose says she only knew her by sight. She appeared out of nowhere in the city, fleeing kidnappers at only 12 years old. The beast folk are highly targeted by enemies as they have special magical powers, and Sato mentions the girl's power to predict the future. And Rose explains that there are people of the beast folk called time oracles who have this type of power, and that they are rare. King Lloyd thanks Rose for having prevented the advance of the Demon King's army the previous night. He also makes an emergency summons, saying that war is approaching. Kazuki and Suzune are called to the king's hall. On the way, Suzune notices something strange about Celia, like the way she becomes insecure when talking to Kazuki. Sato can't sleep, thinking about the fox girl and the vision, and Kazuki gets his attention by sending those small luminous balls for him to see at the window, intending to talk to him in the courtyard. He says he feels very afraid of the approaching war. Sato, on the other hand, is very confident. After Kazuki leaves, Suzune appears, showing that she was there watching the two in hiding. But for her, Sato gets tired, saying he has to go, and she doesn't understand his way. And he says he was just encouraging Kazuki because he was feeling insecure, unlike her. Kazuki and Celia say goodbye in a simple way. Meanwhile, Sato introduces Blurin to Yururu, who tries to play with him. The little animal doesn't have much affinity with her. Then Orga explains to Sato that this will be her first battle, just like his, and perhaps that's why she's just trying to distract herself a little. Rose calls Sato to her room for the first time. Calm down, it's not what you're thinking. She just goes over some other battle tips with him, like not sacrificing himself for nothing, and being prudent when deciding who to save at each moment of the battle, preserving enemies and not trying to hinder soldiers in the fight, for example wanting to heal minor injuries while they are firm and strong. Otherwise, the rescuers become easy targets for enemies, and he leaves there determined to do his best. The army sets off with their wagon. Yururu asks if they have arrived, as if she were Shrek's donkey. One of the subordinates explains to Yururu that they need to be as far away from the castle as possible for the battle so as not to put them at risk. And she replies that it makes sense, right? Sato goes with Rose at the front of the carriage. He asks her what demons are like, and she replies that they are semi-humans but they have stronger mana. Rose asks if he is scared, and he says no since he knows someone more intimidating, which is her. And then we see a flashback of Rose and her old students, showing that she was even tougher and would give a slap to a student just for talking too much, and listening to her conversations secretly. Upon arriving at the rescue team's residence, Rose put the students through heavy training, claiming to have made this decision after talking to student A1, and all the students are furious with her, and then Rose leaves them to fight. And look, you is the student's vice. King Lloyd asks Rose to investigate the reasons for the recent invasions that have been happening in the kingdom. Rose and her student subordinates set up camp. To Yu's surprise, everyone seems to listen to her advice on where to go, and they take turns sleeping. But Yu can't sleep, neither can Rose. The two start talking. Yu asks why she chose her to be vice leader, since she is nothing special and is mediocre compared to the other students in the unit. Her job is to do second-rate things like writing reports and sending equipment requests. And Rose replies that someone has to do it. And she also says that she has never received complaints or identified errors from her in this. So it means she handles things well, and that if she continues to show competence like this, one day she might pass the leader position to her in the future. Upon hearing this, the girl almost has a stroke, and Rose says that one day she will no longer be able to lead that unit because there will be others. Yu remembers a time when she was stubborn and didn't listen to her master, and Rose was the one who managed to knock sense into her. And then suddenly Yu realizes that her colleagues were awake, listening to this whole conversation. They treat her sweetly, saying that she worries too much about things and that they trust her, and she scolds them for making her embarrassed. The next day they discover bloodstains in the forest, indicating the presence of someone hunting animals. Rose and her students come across a troop of demons. Rose tries to get a truce for a moment, but the demons do not agree to withdraw from there. So she and the leader of the demons go to fight, while the students deal with the demon army. With her great agility and speed, Rose manages to push the demon leader, making him crash against the trees even with his wind manipulation powers. Then he launches luminous cutting circles in her direction and she manages to dodge them all. She even lifts some trees and throws them at him. And even so, the big guy comes out unscathed. Then he pushes her with a force field made of wind blades, but to his surprise, she manages to get out of the field. With that, she's cut by the blades and uses her healing power to come out without the wounds. And then they go for another round. To her surprise, the general of the demon army adopts an absurd and unpredictable strategy. He uses a curse present in his sword to make all his subordinates allow themselves to be pierced by the swords of Rose's subordinate. By doing this, Rose's subordinates feel victorious for a while. Then they realize that they can no longer pull their swords from the bodies of the fallen, becoming vulnerable to hammer attacks coming from the demon's other hand, leading all of them to death. Another characteristic of this demonic sword is that it drains Rose's mana power, preventing her from being able to use healing magic on them. Also about to be killed by the demon leader, she's saved by Yu, who places herself in front of her, taking the sword blow and dying right in front of her master. This traumatizes her and leaves her in despair, seeing her army dead. Now with a thirst for revenge, she duels with the demon general, delivering several blows and finally piercing him with her sword, making him get stuck in a tree trunk. But he doesn't die, at least not immediately. Suddenly, one of his subordinates who had only been on guard appears, and she is none other than the demon commander we see planning the future invasion of the kingdom of Linger. Rose is so devastated and surprised to see her that she ends up remembering her own subordinate named Yu, and then she lets her take the demon with her. Upon returning to the castle, Rose pleads with King Lloyd to remove her from the position of army commander. Leaving the castle and walking through the city, she encounters some residents, relatives of the subordinates who died, who thank her for having welcomed and restored the personality of their children. The guilt she feels is so great that she abdicated everything and is left alone doing nothing, almost giving up on living. When Siggles visits her, she lets slip that death would be an option. He can't stand to hear such nonsense and grabs her by the blouse, and notices that the wounds from the demonic sword are starting to heal. She explains that it was a temporary curse, so he asks why she doesn't use magic to heal her right eye, and she says she will leave her eye injured because she never wants to forget what happened. With that, she thinks about taking revenge against the demons, but she starts to have some visions of Yu encouraging her to continue, and then she sees all the other students talking to her. Then she gets emotional and cries. With that, she has the idea of creating the kingdom's rescue team. Returning to the present where Rose is next to Sato in the carriage, she starts to say some nice things to him that even he finds strange, and says that he is rare because not everyone can be trained like him. Dawn breaks and the big day has arrived. The army is sleeping in the camp with the exception of Sato, who goes out to see the region. And he is surprised by the arrival of Suzune, who is all excited and wants to show him her new armor, which is customized for a thunder magic user. Sato is surprised by her excitement and says he didn't expect her to like things that are, in his words, cute. And she mentions that she also likes to do cute things like growing cacti, for example. And he says that might not be exactly cute. And she gets tired of this back and forth. She wants to get physical with him, but he doesn't get it. Kazuki arrives and literally grabs her by the arm so she doesn't advance on Sato, and takes her to the battlefield. After receiving instructions from Siggles, Kazuki and Suzune exchange ideas, and he realizes that she is nervous, and she says yes, but that she is also excited. And he realizes that she is very different from how she was in the old world. The enemy army approaches, everyone stands ready. The magic users cast their spells, but it seems that everything was just an illusion. There's no one really there. When they turn to their left, they realize that the army is coming from another direction. A good trick to divert their attention. Linger's army prepares. Rose guides her subordinates and sends them to the battlefield. Sato worries about Kazuki and Suzune, but Yuru tells them to worry about themselves. Before he can say anything else, the first wounded soldiers already start to appear. Sato, Orga and Yururu begin to heal the soldier. The soldier speaks in a very dejected way about a giant snake, and Sato immediately remembers the monster he faced. We see the snake tearing apart some soldiers, and at a certain distance the Black Knight of the demon army observes everything. He is hit by a Linger soldier who pierces him with his sword, but the Black Knight doesn't even seem to have felt anything, and furthermore, still manages to apparently wound the soldier. The soldier is perplexed and tries to warn the others by crawling on the ground. The Black Knight prepares to kill him, but before he can die, someone comes with everything and grabs the soldier, taking him far away. Rose leaves for the battlefield with Sato. On the way, she tells Sato that one of the soldiers named Alec told her that in the field there is an enemy knight in black armor. Sato seems to remember that prophetic vision when he hears this, where he could also see a knight in black armor. Rose completes by saying that the knight seems to have very powerful magic, and still gives him the last advice, as she feels uncomfortable realizing that she would not be able to kill anyone and yes, only save the kingdom's soldiers. And the advice, well, it's impossible to know because she simply just puts her hand on his forehead and says nothing. But what she said he understood and liked the idea. After that, Sato saves a young soldier on the battlefield who is about to be beheaded by the enemy's sword. Meanwhile, Suzune and Kazuki are face to face with the Black Knight. Several soldiers stab him with their swords. Suzune told them not to go, but there was no time, but she sensed something different in him, and he shows no reaction to the blows he took. After that, soldiers who attacked him begin to bleed and die, as if the blow they gave had been to themselves. Then Suzune thinks a little and Kazuki tries to attack him with his magic. Suzune pushes him so the magic doesn't hit the Black Knight, only hitting his shoulder. Kazuki doesn't understand anything, and she explains that she understood that his armor reflects the opponent's blows back at them. Lo and behold, it doesn't take long, Kazuki feels the wound on his shoulder. Meanwhile, Sato is running looking for more wounded, but he is caught by surprise by visions that come into his mind out of nowhere, leaving him confused and distracted. A soldier almost kills him. He was saved by the soldier he himself healed before. Returning to Suzune, she plots a strategy with Kazuki. They give not very strong blows to test the behavior of the Black Knight's diabolical magic, and she realizes that some wounds reflect on them, but one in particular did not reflect, the big cut on his back, and she concludes that he only reflects what he can see, so she asks Kazuki to try again with her. Suzune uses thunder magic to move quickly, and Kazuki uses magic to distract the Black Knight, creating a strong light to bother his vision, while Suzune stabs him in the back. The Black Knight seems to have been fatally wounded. Suzune orders Kazuki to attack him now, but before he can touch him with his sword, the Black Knight pierces the young man with his sword and reflects Suzune's blow back at herself, showing that no, he doesn't just reflect the attacks he can see. He reflects any type of attack, depending only on his will to reflect. The reason the scratch on his back was not reflected was that he didn't wish to reflect it on purpose, just to see what they would do next. And the Black Knight fooled Suzune. Meanwhile, Sato runs to them. Suzune falls to the ground. The Black Knight prepares to deliver the final blow. Suddenly, Sato comes fast as a flash and uses his own magic to land a well-aimed punch to the knight's head, who falls to the ground totally unprepared for that blow. Sato manages to use his healing magic to heal Suzune and Kazuki's wounds, carries them and runs at full speed, passing through the demon soldiers and dodging everyone, and continues to use healing magic on his friends while running, until they fully recover. An interesting thing Suzune notices is that when the Black Knight stood up after receiving Sato's punch, his helmet broke, revealing a little of the knight's face, or rather the knightess's, if what was previously suspicious by her voice is now evident. The Black Knight is a demon woman, and she is thirsty for revenge for having taken Sato's surprise blow, and it ended up not reflecting on him, and she doesn't understand how this is possible. Suzune says she thinks the armor must have been made of mana, and Sato leaves them, goes to fight the knightess. She tries to deliver several blows using tentacles made from her armor to injure Sato. And Suzune understands that since he is surrounded by healing magic when he delivers his blows, he feels nothing because he is automatically healed by the magic. In other words, healing magic is a weakness of the knightess's magic type. Suzune and Kazuki thank Sato, and she goes with Kazuki to the front line to finish off the giant snake and what remains of the demon army. Rose arrives and asks Sato about the situation. He tells her everything, and she sees that Sato handled the situation well, using the non-lethal punch with healing magic that doesn't kill him but leaves the opponent unconscious. After that, Sato also goes to the front line to heal the soldiers poisoned by the snake. Suzune and Kazuki with their powers manage to kill the snake. The demonic army begins to retreat, and Rose talks to Sato, for the first time allowing herself to be pleasant, saying that he did a good job and that no one would have been able to win that battle so quickly without him. He gets emotional, and a film of everything he lived in Linger passes through his head. Suddenly his vision seems to blur and he faints. Rose holds him and understands that he has lost mana and needs to rest. After the defeat of the demon army, the kingdom of Linger salutes and congratulates Sato en masse. Some soldiers even want him to be part of the kingdom's army. King Lloyd sends for Sato in his office. Arriving there, he asks him to go talk to the Black Knight who is imprisoned. They are interrogating her to get information about the demon army. In general, she has cooperated in the interrogation, but Siggles points out that she has resisted cooperating with some essential information about the magical lineage of the commanders and their powers. She says she would only cooperate on one condition, which was to see Sato. Suzune and Siggles escort Sato to the Black Knight's room. On the way, Suzune shows herself very concerned about the possibility of the knight trying something against him. If that happens, she is ready to protect him. Sato wonders how he managed to defeat the knight, and Siggles explains that the knight has an affinity with dark magic, and it seems that this magic is nullified by healing magic. He becomes thoughtful and wonders if the healing magic he was using in each punch was also cancelled, and Siggles thinks so. Sato gets worried and asks if she received treatment for her wounds, and he replies no, she covered herself with the armor right after regaining consciousness. And then he gets worried, right, because she must be in a lot of strong pain in her body. He asks to enter the room, and although surprised, the guard lets him in. And she just wanted to look at the guy who left her in that state. He insists on using his healing magic power on her. By doing so, he also undoes all her black armor, and she gets such a good feeling when she feels Sato's hand that she holds his hand. When she finishes healing, he gently and a little awkwardly warns her that she can now let go of his hand. And she asks him to stay there a little longer because the feeling she is having now is something she has never had before. And Suzune gets a little jealous watching all this. The next day, Rose puts Sato through a new series of training. Soon the demon army will attack again and he has to be prepared for the worst. Sato acknowledges that he still needs to learn new things. For example, he still can't cure diseases. And Rose says he still has many stages to reach that, which is impossible for him now. He asks if there will be more physical training and she replies no, that his endurance is already at a good level. In this new phase, she wants him to learn not to depend on healing magic in battle. And she wants him to be able to dodge blows. Then she pretends to understand that he wants something more dangerous and throws him with everything into the middle of the forest. Waking up in the forest, he thinks he had a dream. To his bad luck, no, Rose is right there to continue tormenting him. Then he tells someone everything he's going through, and that person is the Black Knight. He's outside chatting with a demon woman. She asks why on earth he's there talking to a prison. He just replies that he's unoccupied because the captain had something to do and was off all day, and he wanted to know how she was in that cell. He asked what she intends to do from now on, and she replies that it's not for her to decide. And she materializes the black armor again. It's another way to hide from prying eyes. She asks him to leave and he does. King Lloyd calls Rose and asks her for something. Meanwhile, Sato remembers everything he went through in the battle. Kazuki is training in the castle courtyard while Princess Celia watches, and then he talks to Sato about what happened between him and the knightess. And Sato wanted to talk and says that they shouldn't take everything Suzune says seriously. Celia says that the king was very grateful for the information Sato got from her and thanked him for saving them in battle. Kazuki reinforces that if it weren't for Sato, he would have, well, died right. And the Black Knightess receives a visit from Rose at King Lloyd's request. It's the first time the two have been face to face since the Knightess woke up. Rose has a malicious expression and explains to her that she has two choices: spend the rest of her days in prison or become a better demon. This through her training. Rose places a magical tool on the Knightess that seals her mana, causing her black armor to fall apart. Before the Knightess can make a choice, Rose has already decided for her. She will be her new subordinate, and she doesn't accept no for an answer. Sato is surprised to see Rose taking the Knightess to the rescue team's residence. Then Rose calls Sato to her office and announces that King Lloyd has spoken with her and made the decision to form an alliance with other kingdoms to contain the advance of the demon army. He chose representatives to deliver the request letters to these kingdoms, which in this case are Suzune, Kazuki, and Sato. Anyway, in the city he becomes a celebrity for having been a great hero in battle. And while talking to the inhabitants and thanking them for their affection, he ends up bumping into Suzune, who is still smit with him and doesn't realize it right. While talking to Suzune, he sees the fox girl nearby and runs after her. He catches her and she says she was waiting for him. Now it's time for him to return the favor to her because she needs him to perform a cure and save her mother. Suzune is enchanted by the cuteness of the girl with the fox ears and wants to caress her. The girl ignores her and asks Sato for help and says he's the only one who can help. She introduces herself and her name is Amako. She is a fox from the beast folk and asks him to leave there to avoid people looking at them while they talk. Meanwhile, the former Black Knightess is beaten by Rose. She leaves tired and Rose is tormenting her, making her run even more. Sato and Suzune are with Amako at the rescue team's residence. Sato asks Amako if Suzune's presence there is okay. She says it's okay, what can she do, right? She is sure that a great hero would keep her secret, and says she knows who they are. And then Sato asked her why she showed him the vision. And Amako said she had no choices because otherwise the heroes in the kingdom would fall. She explains that she has this power to predict the future and that she had this vision a year ago. And she couldn't abandon the people who took care of her there. She left the beast folk territory to find the healing magic user. She explains that her mother hasn't opened her eyes for a long time, and she came looking for someone in their kingdom because humans can be born with healing magic. But in no country did she find help. And Suzune asks about Rose, and Amako says she felt she wouldn't help because of her scary demeanor, and also because she had a vision where she refused to help. Sato, on the other hand, is different. She knew she could count on him. Then Sato agrees to help her, and will take advantage of the trips to deliver the letters to the nations to pass through the beast folk territory. He tells everything to Rose, and she says he'll have to tell King Lloyd everything. Precisely because time oracles like Amako tend to have predictions about the future and tell the beast folk what is coming. And if one of them ends up in the Kingdom of Linger, this could lead to war with the beast folk territory. The Black Knightess still continues to be antisocial with the rescue team, and even refuses to eat their food. And Sato says she needs to eat, and she jokes saying she prefers to go back to prison. He gifts her with a diary for her to write how she feels during training, and she continues her training running with the others and with Sato, and still slacking off getting scolded by Rose. But at one point she deviates from the running path, because she keeps hearing strange noises in the forest. As she deviates she sees Sato, and Rose hitting him out of nowhere with a blow that throws him far away, and this is part of his training. Rose scolds Sato for not being able to dodge, and he complains that her attack trajectory changes. Then the Black Knightess ended up showing herself to them because she thought Sato was in danger. Rose sees her and tells her to continue her training now with Sato as supervisor. Sato talks to her under a tree in the field, and he finally asks her name, and she is surprised and answers. Her name is Felmi, but few people call her that, and then Sato is distracted by Blurin, who appears out of nowhere. And Felmi gets annoyed by this and starts running far away. At the residence they comment on this with the subordinates and report that she fainted after running so much, but he used the power of healing on her so she could rest well. She didn't even have dinner and Rose asks Sato to bring her food later. One of the subordinates suggests that he's being too hard on her. In other words, he misunderstood everything. Sato lets slip that he's much more human than Rose. And he shouldn't say that, you know? Rose hits him in the face with a spoonful, and then he manages to heal his own wound. Later, Felmi wakes up and walks through the corridor. She ends up overhearing a conversation with Sato behind Rose's room door. She learns about Sato's mission to deliver the letters to the people, and Sato takes Amako to the kingdom's hall to discuss her issue. King thanks Amako for saving the kingdom from certain death. He informs that he considered Sato's request and planned the travel itinerary with that in mind. When he delivers the letters to the nations, he must also deliver them to Mialerts, which is precisely a nation located on the opposite bank from the beast folk territory. Sato should take the opportunity to go with Amako. He is happy that the king granted his wish. Elsie accompanies them to give instructions. She says he can choose 2 knights to go with them on the trip. The first he chooses one of the guards, and the other he chooses, guess who is Blurin? Yes, the big blue bear. Felmi continues her training with Rose, and she tells her that Sato was watching and secretly overheard her conversation with Sato the night before. Rose even thought that Felmi was going to give some information to the demon people, but in fact she is only concerned about Sato, and Rose tells her not to worry, and continues to break her in training. And then she says goodbye to Sato and he leaves with his friends, while Rose watches from afar and trains Felmi to become a new creature. So did you like the video? Do you want the summary of the 2nd season as soon as it's released? So leave your like, subscribe to the channel and comment below I want the 2nd season. And take the opportunity to check out more summaries here on the channel. I guarantee you'll like it. Just click on the video that's appearing on the screen.